a 15-year-old girl left the house for a walk, promising her parents to return soon. But she never came home, and her phone was turned off. The parents contacted the police, and they began searching for the missing girl. Detectives had no leads until they gained access to her social media account. It was there that a terrible clue was hidden as to what happened to her. Nicole Cable was born on August 12, 1997 in the small American town of Glenburn, Maine. Her parents divorced when she was little. The girl remained to live with her mother, stepfather, and 3 younger sisters. During her school years, Nicole was interested in music, was on the cheerleading team, and even worked as a model for a local company. She also had many friends who described the girl as cheerful, helpful, and kind. She always tried to maintain a positive outlook on life, even though she, like many teenagers, had her difficulties. In the spring of 2013, when the girl was 15 years old, she was looking forward to the upcoming school holidays and her birthday. Only a few months separated her from obtaining the driver's license that she had dreamed of for so long. Nicole lived in a tiny town where there was practically nothing except a few residential buildings. However, about 20 kilometers away there were larger settlements where almost all of her friends lived, and there was much more entertainment. Even her school was 20 minutes away from home, and she had to wait for the bus every morning. On Sunday evening, May 12, Nicole told her parents that she was going out to meet a friend and would be back soon. She left the house at about 9 o'clock and headed along the main road. But she never returned home, and her worried parents tried to reach her. However, her phone was turned off, and the girl did not log into social networks. Contacted by her friends, they learned that none of them had seen Nicole that evening. After waiting until the morning, her mother decided to contact the police. She hoped to the last that Nicole simply stayed overnight with friends. This version raised serious questions. Firstly, the girl never left home all night without her parents' permission. Secondly, she would definitely contact her mother and tell her where she is. The police immediately began searching. At the first stages, they refused to adhere to any one version. Investigators admitted that the girl could have left home of her own free will, but also did not rule out a criminal component. The first day of searching did not bring any results. Police interviewed the girl's friends and relatives and began searching for her in the Glenburn area. Nicole's parents created a Facebook group where they talked about their daughter's disappearance and called on the public to help in the search. That same day, her friends printed and posted hundreds of flyers, both in Glenburn and beyond. At the same time, the police asked volunteers not to go out in search of the girl, so as not to interfere with the service dogs picking up her scent. On the second day, the police organized a press conference where Nicole's mother made an appeal. With tears in her eyes, she asked her daughter to return home if she ran away of her own free will. The mother also spoke out about the possible kidnapping and called on those responsible to release Nicole if anyone is holding her. The head of the local police added that the search operation will be expanded. The FBI and state police are involved. As a result, the total number of employees involved in this case increased to 45. The public soon learned one alarming fact. Nicole's mother said that her daughter had been corresponding with a certain guy on Facebook for several weeks. The police gained access to Nicole's account and found out that the young man was Brian Bitterfield. Moreover, based on the correspondence on the day of her disappearance, the girl agreed to meet him at the edge of the street where her house was located. At first, the police refused to give any comments on this situation, but new details soon emerged. It turned out that Brian studied at the same school with Nicole and knew her personally. But during interrogation, the guy stated that he had spoken with the girl only a few times in his entire life and had not conducted any correspondence on Facebook with her. Against this background, another strange thing was noticed. There were 2 Brian Bitterfield accounts on Facebook. Only one of them was deleted on the evening of Nicole's disappearance. Brian himself stated that he only had one account and had nothing to do with the second account. Moreover, He was aware of the existence of this fake page and even complained to the police several weeks before Nicole's disappearance. It all looked really strange, and the police were in no hurry to accuse the young man of any crime. Instead, they continued to explore the area in the Glenburn area, hoping to find some clues. At the same time, the computer department began a detailed study of this suspicious Facebook account. On Friday, May 17, the sheriff asked the public for information. Police were looking for a black Ford Ranger pickup truck and asked for any information about the vehicle. They clarified that the driver's involvement in the girl's disappearance has not been established, and it is too early to draw any conclusions. The sheriff also announced the launch of a 24-hour hotline for any tips regarding the case. They had to allocate a separate number because the number of calls exceeded several hundred. On the sixth day, the police announced they were calling for volunteers to search the area. They set up collection points and divided people into groups. The volunteers' tasks were to look for any things that might be related to the case. Moreover, this time the search area was significantly expanded. It spread to the two nearest cities of Bangor and Old Town. More than 500 people responded to the police call. Among them were approximately 400 local residents and about 100 professional volunteers from various districts. In addition, teams on SUVs and horses participated in the search. Given the scale and poor terrain, the authorities tried to use all possible resources. They even organized filming from an airplane, in the hope that something useful for the investigation would be noticed in the footage. Exactly a week after Nicole disappeared, the police issued a disappointing statement. The girl's body was found in the Old Town area in a wooded area near the road. They were in no hurry to reveal any details, specifying only that the body was covered with branches and was discovered thanks to a service dog. It was soon announced that the police were dealing with a murder, and the very next day, May 20, they announced the arrest of the suspect. He turned out to be a 20-year-old local resident named Kyle Dubey. No details were known at that time, and the public was still in the dark for some time. The next day, he was formally charged with first-degree murder. At the same time, it turned out that at the time of his arrest, he was already in prison. The guy was sentenced to 90 days in prison for evading police and causing a motorcycle accident last year. Kyle began serving his sentence 3 days before the discovery of Nicole's body, but until that moment he was free. According to the girl's friends, she had known Kyle for several months. The day before she disappeared, she complained to several friends that Kyle tried to kiss her, and Nicole had to give him a serious rebuff to get him to stop. However, the police have so far kept the evidence against the man secret. It was known that he lived with his parents and their 4-year-old daughter, over whom he had custody. Kyle was also dating an 18-year-old girl named Sarah and working for a local disability care company. His lawyer asked for the preliminary hearing to be held behind closed doors, and the judge granted that request. In this regard, the public and the media did not have any access to information on the case, and the judge's decision was criticized. Nicole's funeral took place on May 26. Before this, several hundred local residents gathered together and honored her memory by releasing balloons into the sky. A few days after the funeral, the judge, under pressure from the public, lifted the ban on disclosing information in this case. And here, some alarming facts have finally become known. First, the police were able to establish that the fake Facebook account was registered from Kyle's computer, and all subsequent messages came from his IP address. This meant that it was Kyle who had tricked her out of the house shortly before the murder. And from the forensic expert's report, it became clear that the girl died on the day of her disappearance. Secondly, the police had several important witnesses at once: Kyle's brother and his girlfriend. According to Sarah, who met the suspect, Kyle confessed to her killing him a few days after the incident. This happened immediately after Sarah was called in for questioning. There it became clear that the police had suspicions about Kyle, but there was no evidence. He was also interrogated, but he stated that he was at work on the day of the girl's disappearance. Kayla told his brother that he lured Nicole to the outskirts of the city using a fake Facebook account. The guy planned to make it look like Brian Bitterfield had kidnapped her and kept her in a remote area. Next, Kyle planned to find her and free her, which, in his opinion, was supposed to make the girl fall in love with her savior. This all sounds strange to say the least, but there will be even more to come. Do you remember this version of the criminal himself, told to his brother? Further events developed as follows. Using a fake account, Kyle lured Nicole to a remote location along Hudson Route. There he was already waiting for her, hiding into bushes. He was wearing a ski cap covering his face. When Nicole arrived at the appointed location, he pounced on her, wrapped her head in duct tape, and loaded her into his father's black Ford Ranger pickup. The car was parked nearby. Then, in his own words, Kyle took her away from the abduction site. When he began to pull her out of the car, he noticed that the girl showed no signs of life. The guy realized that because of the tape, she could not breathe and died. Then he panicked and decided to hide the body. Kyle told his girlfriend the same story, adding some details. He said that before hiding the body, he removed most of Nicole's clothes and threw them out of the car window on the way back home. This was done to prevent the police from finding traces of his DNA. The police did find several items of clothing that belonged to the girl. They were in almost the same place where Kyle attacked Nicole. The key point here was that Kyle told his girlfriend almost the exact location where he hid the body. It was thanks to the fact that Sarah came to the police, told the whole story, and managed to discover Nicole's body. Kyle himself refused to admit guilt, but the situation was far from being in his favor. When the police revealed all the details of the medical examination, more serious evidence emerged against the suspect. Under Nicole's fingernails, they found blood and DNA that completely matched Kyle's sample. When the guy was interrogated a few days after the murder, there were deep scratches on his face. He himself explained this by saying that he was injured at work. In addition, the girl's cause of death was strangulation, as evidenced by neck injuries. This went against the supposed version of what Kyle had told his brother and girlfriend. If he had covered the victim's mouth and nose with tape, such damage simply would not have occurred. His lawyer requested a psychological evaluation, which slowed down the trial. But a few months after the arrest, something interesting happened. Kyle was charged with theft after a stolen gun was found at his home. Before this guy, he had been arrested several times for robbery, but each time he got off with a fine. The examination showed that Kyle was fully sane, and the trial was scheduled for February 2015. While waiting for him, the defendant was in prison. Before the trial began, Kyle's lawyer filed a motion to exclude certain witness statements from the case file. One of them was an officer from the correctional facility where Kyle had arrived to serve his sentence for evading the police and causing a motorcycle accident. According to the officer, the guy acted very nervously and even cried. When he was asked why he was so worried, Kyle answered something like this: "It's not about this time, but about what else I've done." A trial began on February 22, 2015. Kyle's lawyer said that his client is not guilty of murder, and the investigation is completely biased. According to the defense, he was at home at the time of the murder, and someone else attacked Nicole. Kayla's girlfriend Sarah was named as a possible suspect. She allegedly hated Nicole because she was hanging out with her boyfriend. The lawyer said that she had access to Kyle's computer, from which she could create a fake account in order to frame her boyfriend after the murder. This version had no confirmation and ran counter to the real evidence. Kyle logged into the fake account not only from his computer, but also from his phone. Moreover, he logged in through one application, changing his personal account to a fake one. Because of this, he could clearly be seen logging out of one account and immediately logging into another. Additionally, there was no physical evidence against Sarah, unlike Kyle. His DNA was found not only under the victim's fingernails, but also on her clothes, which the killer threw under the road home. The next witness was the real Brian Bitterfield, He stated that Kyle had a long-standing dislike for him because Brian had previously dated his girlfriend. In his opinion, this is what made Kyle create a fake account with his name in order to frame the young man if something happened. The prosecution also provided a screenshot and correspondence, from which it followed that Kyle communicated not only with Nicole, but also with other underage girls. The next witness was Kyle's colleague, who worked with him at a disability care company. The defendant's lawyer insisted that the scratches on Kyle's face appeared during work, but the witness denied this. According to his story, on May 11 and 12, he and Kyle were at the home of a woman suffering from mental illness. At some point, she began to behave aggressively and attacked Kyle, leaving several scratches on his face near the eye. Kyle went to the hospital for help only the next day, May 13, when a colleague noticed that new scars had appeared on his face. This happened immediately after Nicole disappeared. Another colleague said that on the day Nicole disappeared, Kyle left work at about 9 p.m. and did not return until 6 a.m., although he was supposed to be on duty all night. At the same time, he asked not to tell anyone about his absence. The court also summoned 4 inmates with whom Kyle had contact while in jail awaiting trial. They all stated that Kyle confessed to them about killing the girl. He told one of them that he had strangled his girlfriend and made it look like an accident. He openly told another that he had originally planned to commit this crime. Even more interesting was the testimony of a prisoner named Scott Ford. He had spent most of his life behind bars and had a reputation for being knowledgeable about the legal system. Kyle talked to him for a long time, after which he decided to ask how best he could avoid punishment for the crime. Next, Kyle wrote down on paper several versions of what happened to Nicole and handed the sheets of information to Ford. All these versions had a common component. Kyle admitted that he created a fake account and lured Nicole to a deserted area. But then he described different versions of events. On one he wrote that he simply wanted to kidnap her and then save her, but he misplaced the tape, and the girl suffocated. On another piece of paper, he said that he jumped out of the bushes at Nicole, and she lost consciousness from fright. Panicking, Kyle sealed her mouth with tape and took her away from the city, after which he noticed that she had no pulse. According to another version, he did not use tape, and the girl died just like that. Another version said that Kyle jumped out of the bushes and grabbed her by the torso, but then realized that he had actually squeezed her throat, after which she lost consciousness. As we can see, all these stories seem frankly crazy, but there was something really useful for the investigation in them. Kyle described in detail the place where he attacked her, as well as where and how he hid the body. Moreover, he indicated the exact place where he hid the ski mask in which he attacked the girl. All this information was kept secret until the start of the trial, so only the killer could know such details. Experts examined these sheets of paper, finding Kyle's fingerprints and DNA on them. The trial was not without difficulties. Kyle's younger brother, who testified against him, began to deny the fact that Kyle had confessed to the murder. The problem was that his brother described all the details of what happened in great detail, which he could only learn from Kyle. And the only one who did not say a word during the entire trial was Kyle himself. He refused to testify even in his own defense. The investigation offered him a deal within which he could count on a reduced sentence in exchange for a confession, but he refused. On March 6, 2016, the final court hearing took place, at which a verdict was rendered. Kyle was found guilty of premeditated murder of Nicole. Relatives and a lawyer tried to achieve a lenient sentence, citing his age and the presence of a small daughter, but the court refused to make concessions. Kyle received 60 years for murder and another 30 for kidnapping. In his final speech, the judge noted that there is overwhelming evidence against Kyle, and his guilt in this case is obvious. Instead of demonstrating remorse and confessing to what he had done, he invented various versions of what happened and tried with all his might to avoid prison. For this reason, the court refused to commute the sentence. Moreover, the judge was inclined to believe that Kyle had initially planned to kill Nicole, Having been thinking through this plan for several weeks, Nicole's parents called this sentence fair and expressed the hope that he would never leave prison. In addition, they gave many interviews and took part in various television shows, talking about the dangers of social networks, such as the murder of their daughter. In their opinion, the tragedy could have been avoided if the criminal had not been able to impersonate another person on the internet. However, people like Kyle, sooner or later, can reach the point of murder even without fake accounts.